also talking about what the president mentioned. They say production in numbers matters: cement, sugar, steel products. Talking about Museveni vows to crush corruption in parliament finance. But then again, this seems as if what is happening in Kenya, what is double speak.
Double speak, yes. So you attack the activists who are exposing corruption, but then you're fighting corruption.
In parliament, and the Speaker of Parliament has
been accused of corruption. This is not us. This is the New Vision in Uganda. Hakuna gazeti si tumeandika. All right.
In Tanzania now, CCM jiandae ni kisaikolojia. Maneno uchaguzi
2024-2025 likianza kupanda. Kule Tanzania masuala ya uchaguzi yanapamba moto. Kuna jamaa anaulizia what happened to Malema. Malema is a kingmaker. He's probably going to be part of government very soon.
Oh, yes.
CCM meanwhile, and this is what will determine, because remember, we've been discussing about the waning influence of these mega parties in Africa. ANC is one of them, CCM is the other. Kanu died a long time ago. So
we're also looking at even Akina Ford Sahi.
That one never got to that level. But this one, what happens after this election will determine a lot. Interesting discussion.
We'll also be crossing to for Rwanda in a few, to Kiangalia Rwanda's paper and see also, because they're having the same conversation. But still in Tanzania, the front page of Tanzania, they're discussing matters, how they're building industries, and they say Tanzania's fisheries policy in international limelight. Tanzania's empowerment of small-scale fishers has drawn praisers at an international meeting in Dar es Salaam, with participants terming it exemplary. And the highlights there, notable takeaways from Samia's Korea visit. And
this visit is among those things that they're being accused of double speak. You remember President William Ruto sensationally claimed that going forward, African leaders will not be going to one country for an Africa summit.
And African leaders
they'll be sending the AU chairperson. Yes, they need to be treated with respect.
Yes.
Then
kaenda pale
makofi hivi kama wamelanishwa laini hivi, ni kama kwaya.
Wewe songa hivi kidogo.
Sio sisi tulisema hiyo picha ni ilikuwa pale, sio sisi.
Ni picha.
Walienda wenyewe.
Another interesting bit, HASLB announces a 90-day window for loan applications that is similar to HELB in Kenya. Finally, into Rwanda, what I was telling you, Kagame, Habineza, Mpayimana meet requirements to run for president.
So these are the candidates for president?
Yes. So Rwanda will be holding the elections next month, July 14th to 16th. So the president, the current RPF Inkotanyi flag bearer, President Paul Kagame. So this again is something to look out for next month.
Yes, the RPF has been there for quite a while. Yes, I just didn't know that Inkotanyi tag there. But apparently there's a Democratic Green Party
of
Rwanda, and there's an independent. Oh, this is an independent candidate.
Yes.
Interesting.
So it's interesting because normally on the front page of Rwanda, this is the New Times, you rarely come to see any political mentions.
Okay.
It's always about development in that country.
But with elections coming, I guess they can't avoid that discussion. All right.
Oh, yes.
Let's come back home and take a look at the traffic situation in Nairobi this morning. Nairobi looks good, but we had noticed some incident here, and this is Thika Road. And you can see actually, so anyone using Thika Road, this is the Utalii Drift from all the way from Allsops down KCA University, the Utalii Drift. This is way before you get to the Muthaiga interchange. There seems to be, yes, there seems to be a problem, and it's that whole stretch. Yeah, that survey, Utalii Drift, Mathare Mental Hospital, it's at a standstill, and it would appear no movement after that Muthaiga square. That means motorists from Kiambu Road are having it easy this morning. Once they get to the Pangani interchange.
So probability is something has happened.
Something must have happened here just before you get to the Muthaiga interchange. That means that Thika Road as it is right now, it's backing up really heavily. If you can avoid Thika Road, this stretch from Allsops all the way to Muthaiga, if you can, at this time, please do. Otherwise, there seems to be a problem there. That is blessings. Those are blessings for Kiambu Road, meaning everything is new. Guys are just dashing. Ile inaitwa happy hour, you know?
Ile unapiga tu kupiga.
Let's take a look at Jogoo Road. Nothing much to report. Yes, in fact, it's actually way much better today. Unlike so many other days, Jogoo Road looks good this Friday. All other roads into town are looking good. Mombasa Road, Expressway all the way into town is looking good. So is Langata Road. This is Langata Road, Magathi Way, Ngong Road, as well as the other major one. This is Wayaki Way. So apart from Thika Road, everything else is good. But if you're using Thika Road and you can avoid this stretch between Allsops and Pangani, please do. You can decide to branch into Kiambu Road. And it's a Friday, and I tell you, by the way, it is a Friday. My director is trying to... all right, you can use Outer Ring Road into town, probably, or come back to Kiambu Road and try and find your way into town, because this is going to be a problem this Friday.
All right, let's take a look at what to expect for today on our subsequent bulletins. That is on our news diary for the same. So on the first page of our news diary, taking a look at matters World Food Safety Day. Fred, today is a World Food Safety Day, so be very keen on what you're eating. And they say it draws attention to the food safety incidents, and this is theme underlines the importance of being prepared for food safety incidents, no matter how mild or severe they can be. That is on matters World Food Safety Day. On the next page, matters Finance Bill. Today is the 10th day of the public participation of the Finance Bill 2024, where various stakeholders will be meeting with the Finance and National Planning Committee, led by Member of Parliament for Molo, that is Kuria Kimani. On to the next page, matters EAC will be having a state, the heads of state now will be having a virtual meeting. So this is for the 23rd Extraordinary Summit for the EAC heads of state, and it will be chaired by South Sudan President, that is Salva Kiir, and is expected to consider the consideration of the proposed appointment of the new Secretary General, and as well as consideration of proposed appointment of a judge to the First Instance Division of the East African Court of Justice from the Republic of Kenya as well. And matters sports. Today, Kenya will be facing Burundi in the Group F 2026 World Cup qualifiers match today at the Bingu National Stadium in Malawi. So both teams have accumulated 3 points each from 2 games. So the game was actually to be played in Nairobi, by the way, today. But then, hapa Kenya, we don't have a FIFA-accredited stadium.
Lakini tuko na stadium ya hold national holidays. Hizo tuko nazo nyingi.
Oh yes. Na kualika Benhin.
Yes.
Pale
ya
vizuri.
kuharibu nyasi.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
That is
we have stadium for everything else apart from what it's required for.
Oh yeah. Because I mean, imagine if this game was to be played today in, let's say, Kasarani Sports Stadium. The kind of turnout that would be there would be fantastic.
But Friday, let's not mess up our mood.
Sindio.
Yeah.
Because some ITAL vibes.
I tell you.
Oh yes. Tuangalie magazeti sasa.
There's a yellow dress on the front page of the Standard, but I will not focus on that one for now. Stanley's trying to confuse me. But we are serious people.
Mary Warui, just in case.
We're talking about why Raila and Rigathi are pulling together. Yes, let's not get distracted. Converging interests. Azimio boss Raila Odinga and one of his bitterest critics, DP Rigathi Gachagua, are now backing the controversial one-man, one-vote, one-shilling model of resource allocation that was flashed down the drain with BBI, with the opposition chief saying he's happy the deputy president has seen the light. The story is on page 4. And yesterday, a group of members of the communities around Mount Kenya region paid a courtesy call on the former Prime Minister at the ODM headquarters here in Nairobi. And this is where the former Prime Minister made this remark.
Was it the same place he was dancing? I saw a video.
Yes.
I saw a video of him enjoying
it's the same
himself.
Picture. It's the same picture. The Azimio leader Raila Odinga shaking a leg with the Gikuyu traditional dancers during the handover of Limuru 3 reports by conveners at Chungwa House yesterday. He said the one man, one vote, one shilling proposal advocated for at the talks would ensure a fair share of development for all Kenyans. But yes, you would say from Raila Odinga, this is consistency. He's always been advocating for this. He did so during the BBI. It was shot down. Now that other people are picking it up, yes, he says yes. But I already said this. I told you. So yes.
Plus, it reminds me of yesterday's cartoon. I think it was it Daily Nation, showing how Prime Cabinet Secretary's caricature was cementing Azimio leader Raila Odinga there on matters AUC, but then ni kama hiyo cement haiko imekauka.
Well, he's just speaking his mind. He may not have anything to do with it, or he may not be in a position to push for it, but he's just saying, I told you so. I had already said this. Other stories given prominence on the front page of the Standard. Agony after police bullet takes away man's life, and this is a sad story in Mathare. For days, Mathare has been crying for justice over demolition of their homes, but for one family, it is a double tragedy. They've not only lost their house, but also their kin was shot dead. That story is on page 3. Other highlights on the front page of the Standard. Courts blow to Ruto's rules for state agencies. In sports, doping slams the brakes on fast-rising star. And in politics, party aspirants protest as UDA postpones polls. Yes, the Nairobi UDA elections were to be, county elections were to be held today. Yesterday, the top candidates were called for a meeting, and the party decided to postpone the same.
Till next week on Friday.
Yes.
I saw Apollo Kamau telling us that both teams and both parties have already said
both
that,
are claiming they've won already.
They've won.
Yes, interesting. Yes, mention of that World Cup qualifier fixture on the back page of the Standard. Will Kenya put on the winning shoes against Burundi? And you have an image there of Harambee Stars captain Michael Olunga in a training session at the Police Sacco Stadium. This is a game that will be played in Malawi, Kenya versus Burundi, today at 4 p.m. On Tuesday, there's another game, Kenya versus Ivory Coast. Wow. Interesting. Let goals keep Tunisia on track for World Cup slot as well. So matters World Cup qualifiers on the back page of the Standard.
On to the Daily Nation, why Kenyans reject tax bill. They say outcry. The government has been warned of massive job losses and a major economic crisis should contentious proposals contained in the Finance Bill 2024 be passed into law. So more than 500 groups appearing before members of parliament, including the church, have asked parliament to do away the punitive taxes, even as businesses threaten to exit the Kenyan market, and a new opinion poll showed high public disapproval of the measures. So this conversation continuing on X, how some people lamenting that the international firms that they're working for are threatening to exit Kenya. So that means they're going to be losing their jobs as well. This is going to turn probably ugly for most Kenyans. On the bottom, Raila turns into Gachagua ally on divisive revenue sharing formula. Just a nutshell of the same, Raila has waded into the debate of the controversial formula for sharing of national resources. And he said the one man, one vote, one shilling formula that has been championed by DP Gachagua will ensure that revenue is allocated on the strength of a region's population. He said this was his position during the BBI stand, and his stand has given Gachagua a powerful ally against criticism by some leaders from arid and semi-arid regions. And this is a whole new twist to what we've been seeing, the kind of soundbites we've been listening to the past 3 days. It's a whole new twist to the same. Into education, we'll be getting to that on the back page, but before that, on the left strip, top detectives' death, secretive ways and sudden change in routine. They say a senior intelligence officer who police claim died by suicide on Tuesday was planning to expand his popular restaurant in Kisumu City, according to staff who described him as generous but secretive. Into football matters, we are ready for Burundi, says coach Engin Firat. In the third 2026 World Cup qualifiers Group F match, knowing these are 3 points that must be collected to keep the dream of a maiden appearance alive. So Firat anasema inji niko sawa. You get it? Engin Firat. Yes. On the back page, an ease in schools, colleges over delayed capitation. The delays affect secondary schools, colleges offering technical training, and universities. They also talk about state needs 108 billion cash shillings to implement police reforms. That, in a nutshell, is the Daily Nation for you. We'll be getting back to it on page 16 for the cartoons. But before that...
Right. Tuangalia hii scandal on the front page of the Business Daily. They say 800,000, these are people, get hustler loans outside system. Sio sisi tunasema, ni gazeti kwanza ni Business Daily. 465 million shillings lent to unregistered borrowers. How? Auditor flags expensive rollover fees. The Hustler Fund issued 465 million shillings in loans to 809,000 Kenyans who had not registered for the product, exposing flaws in the operations of the microcredit scheme targeted at low-income groups. And
experts had read into this even last year and way back and said this...
Where is the fund? Who administers it? Who runs it? Those are the questions. And yes.
And there's so many loopholes even just getting into it. So.
Hey. Well, wacha tungoje tuseme, tukue wapole. Yes.
As Museveni says,
yes.
Relax, calm down.
Talking cows.
Talking cows.
Yeah. On the ticker, more highlights, new taxes to make banking services affordable. Elsewhere, US wants tighter rules on wildlife trafficking and regulated fishing. Taxpayers pay 17 billion shillings KQ loans in 9 months, and CBK bags 12 billion shillings interest lending states. That's the front page of the Business Daily.
From Business Daily to People Daily, the master of double-speak. They say integrity. President Ruto lives true to famous political maxim that says you campaign in poetry but govern in prose, by disregarding key campaign promises as his allies egg him on. More is on pages 4. On the bottom, what was happening in Nairobi yesterday, they say voice of the week. Members of the social justice movement protest on the streets of Nairobi over the rising cost of living affecting Kenyans with low income. On the right, pale chini alarm after 8 officers seized for crime. And those are the same officers that you go to when you're probably robbed. Pale juu, the biggest conversation even for today, you have seen the light. Raila tells Gachagua. And they picked that photo of, when was this, by the way? That Azimio leader Raila Odinga as well as DP.
It's during the Africa Climate Summit.
Oh, yes.
I think when Raila Odinga made his way into the
KICC, yes. Interesting. And they say exposed a scandal, another scandal, of grabbed prison land. That is the People Daily for you.
Tuangazie ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo. Anasema msiguse mkate. Matokeo ya utafiti yaonyesha 84% ya Wakenya wapinga kuongezwa kwa ushuru unaotozwa mkate. Anasema ile VAT ya 16%. 87% ya Wakenya wanapinga mswada wa fedha wa mwaka huu ulio na mapendekezo ya kuongeza ushuru wa mkate hadi 16%. Utafiti umeonyesha kulingana na utafiti uliofanywa na kampuni ya Infotrack kuhusu athari za mswada wa fedha, Wakenya wengi wanahisi Kenya inaelekea pabaya. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili. Unaweza soma zaidi masuala ya ripoti hiyo ya Infotrack pale, lakini wanasema msiguse mkate. Habari kamili pale. Vidokezo zaidi pale chini, sheria kusitiri mawaziri wa kaunti njiani. Kwingineko hawana umeme licha kuzalisha wenyeji wa Takwel walia tangu 1980. Stima imepelekwa hadi jijini bila kufurahia. Israel sasa yashambulia kambi ya UN. Pale juu, Raila aunga mfumo wa kugawa pesa kutegemea wakazi. Na kwingineko Arsenal FC yahitaji bilioni 16 za Kenya kumpata Isak. Watalazimika kuvunja benki kupata huduma za mshambulizi Isak. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 20. Na hizo ndizo habari zilizopewa kipaumbele kwenye gazeti la Taifa Leo.
Shida ni mtampata, lakini bado hamtashinda taji.
Ngoja hapo tu. Ngoja hapo.
Seasoni, next season mtakuja Na kile ambacho mtashinda ni njaa tu.
Mmekuwa wengi sana nawasikia. Nyinyi ni wengi ni sawa.
On the front page of the Star, winners and losers in Ruto's new budget. MPs declined requests amounting to 306 billion cash shillings from ministries, departments and agencies. So they say the estimates, billions set aside for hiring medical interns, student loans as well as junior schools. And they have that photo there. On the bottom scroll, 3 highlights focused. Raila backs Lemuro 3, 1 man, 1 shilling push. And that is the conversation that will be continuing in State of the Nation, in the youth perspective this morning. Stick around for that. Into some statistics, they say more boys than girls drop out of primary school. And into some party politics, I'm still in control, says Secretary General of UDA, Cleophas Malala, after claims of clipped powers. Pale juu, the Siasa Pullout magazine, a new dawn for US-African cooperation after Ruto visit. Also talk about the finance bill, the devil in the details. That is the front page of the Star. Takes us now to the cartoons this morning. And now yes, Daily Nation as well as the Standard.
Nikanazo hapa tuangazie the cartoon on page 14 of the Standard, matters education, and we do have a caricature there of the education CS and a very fat government that is drinking everything from the tap of capitation that's supposed to be going from schools. And the government already has a lot of, okay, the stomach is already filled, but it's drinking the few drops from the tap that is supposed to be feeding schools. That debate on funding of education. On page 16 of the Daily Nation, this debate of 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote. On one hand, we do have the Kenya Kwanza leadership, and now joining them in this debate is Raila Odinga. But in the background, there appears to be something happening, that this 1 man, 1 shilling vote is a smokescreen. And what is hiding behind is debate over Finance Bill 2024. Yes, so it means that this debate could actually distract us from the main debate of the moment, which is a Finance Bill 2024. That's a cartoon on the Daily Nation.
Right. On the screens is for the Standard, that is page 14, has to do with matters education, the capitation. I have this huge gentleman there, representing the government, and he's drinking from the capitation tap, those water drops. Common mwananchi alikuwa ameweka boli yake pale na sufuria for the schools, lakini hapati kitu. And just behind this huge gentleman is a cabinet secretary of education. We'll picture then Yofimbo. Probably can't do anything on the same. Well, what happens on the screen is what Fred had for you earlier. But then right now on People Daily, page 10, your opinion matters, but the outcome is obvious. That is the MPs saying, crossing one edge onto the next, holding that briefcase, their Finance Bill 2024. Wow. And well, this again matters on what was happening yesterday, the whole protests. As much as people are protesting, but then MPs wanasema, your opinion matters, yes, but the outcome is obvious. But then again, as you always say on State of the Nation, it's interesting how even for this particular year, for the voting, will it be as obvious as it was last year with the kind of cracks that you're seeing? We'll
wait to see. This thing will be happening next week, yes, on Thursday. So yes, in less than 7 days, we'll know how this debate will go. But I think the debate will continue for the rest of the month. Whether or not there'll be any changes to the finance bill, we've seen all the opposition. Kenyans have actually said, and why Kenyans are rejecting tax bill. It is rather obvious. Kenyans are saying countries heading in the wrong direction. Matters to do with the taxation on bread. Kenyans, and according to the opinion poll by Infotrack, 54% of Kenyans understand the finance bill. They've actually gone through it. Hey. That's very impressive that people know exactly. This time around when they're discussing budget, at least people are knowledgeable about this debate.
I think it goes with the whole once bitten, twice shy kind of thing.
After what we saw last year.
After last year.
People are like, because MPs will come back and say, we did not read it, let's read it ourselves.
Let's read it. Because I think even for the kind of conversations that are right now, matters motor vehicle, when people hear some of this, they're like, But let me find out what this is really.
Exactly.
Vehicle.
And we'll be looking at some of these headlines and discussions with my panelists today. Brenda Ogalo, advocate of the High Court, Victor Odhiambo, governance expert, and Nelly Chepkemoi, public policy practitioner on the youth perspective, just to get to understand what are the young Kenyans thinking about some of these topics that we've been looking at. That after the break, and you can be part of this conversation, of course, on X at TV47 News and on Facebook, TV47 Kenya.
Oh yes. Remember, it is a reggae edition coming up at around 8 a.m. So start, sharing your thoughts about and your tribute to Njambi Koikai. What do you remember her for? We'll be having Terry Ranks, top ranking for DJ, as well as MC Natty Jim from Doti family on the same as well. Some iRevive from 8 a.m. all the way to 10 a.m. We're also taking a look at what has been happening on the trends with the ladies. Stick around for that.
Introducing the whole new TV47.digital, a brand new way to immersive experience to news and entertainment. Enjoy uninterrupted live streaming of your favorite programs on TV47 and Radio 47 on the go with our new mobile-friendly website. Experience the future of broadcasting. Visit www.tv47.digital or scan this QR code and stream your way to endless news and entertainment. Welcome to the home of untold stories.
Make your spices pop. If you're making a dish that relies heavily on spices for seasoning, toast the spices on a pan for about 30 seconds until they are fragrant before adding them to your recipe. It vastly improves their taste and amplifies the flavor.
What if the only limits are the ones we set ourselves? Beyond the Limit celebrates extraordinary disabilities.
Nikicheza ball is also a part of exercise.
Witness the power of determination and see how boundaries are being defined.
I feel comfortable sharing my story.
This is a Toyota.
This is a Toyota, yeah?
7L.
Every Saturday at 8 p.m.
Did you know that singing the happy birthday song twice while washing hands is a great way to ensure sufficient time for proper hand hygiene and reduce the spread of germs?
Get ready to meet your favorite pals on Kids on the Block. Settle in for captivating stories that will spark your imagination in our Storytime segment. We have looked everywhere. The CCTV cameras, checkposts, passenger logs of trains and flights. We have nothing. Clip.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni Ridgeback ana sniff Simba.
Even the employees knows that. So when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO, and the rest of.
At what point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose kila Alhamis saa 1:30 jioni.
In a world where challenges are as common as opportunities, there are those who dare to defy the odds. They are the entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurship isn't just about starting a business, it's about embracing uncertainty, pushing boundaries and turning dreams into reality.
Hata ambao ni pesa ya kusave, wallahi. Ambao mwaka ni pesa nyingi sana.
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
The way we run the business is in a very unforgiving way, where every team member has to bring out their best.
So, to all the dreamers, innovators, and risk takers out there, remember, being an entrepreneur isn't just a job, it's a way of life. Join the journey. Become an entrepreneur. The Grind, Mondays at 7:30 p.m.
Here on Beyond the Limit, we celebrate the extraordinary achievements of individuals who redefine possibilities. In a journey of resilience and determination, these individuals demonstrate that limitations are merely stepping stones to greatness.
I'm Nancy Njoroge, a mother of 3. I have 2 girls and a boy who is Clinton and who is autistic.
When my heart got healed, I decided to come out to be creating CP awareness, to let other people know that there is such a condition, and people that has it is not that they are witches.
Together, let's go beyond the limit every Saturday at 8 p.m.
Welcome to The Realtor, where we take you on an exciting journey from bare land to dream home. Step 1. Finding the perfect plot. We explore location, size, and potential. Next, construction begins. Witness the foundation being laid, walls rising, and rooms taking shape. Step 3. Electricity matters. We delve into wiring, switches, and smart home tech. Step 4. From paint choices to fixtures, it's all about aesthetics. Step 5. It's time to get the right furniture. Finally, the big day. Time to move in and create memories. Join us on the journey to making homes a reality on The Realtor, Tuesdays, 6:30.
Kila kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that. So when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO, and the rest of.
At what point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi wa kina kuhusu viongozi wetu.
Pick your core business as the bigger stones. Put them in your diary first. Give priority the bigger things.
Usikose.
Which he actually achieved. Being overambitious sometimes is good because it makes you realize some things. And I think that is what Rigathi Gachagua is realizing today. Probably by that time it was just maybe a campaign mode. Maybe it was, lack of a better word, drunk with power. But then he realizes that probably there are certain things that might have been said that were not correct. And then we have to get back to what is really that Kenyans want. You see, when they're coming back and they're realizing that at the end of the day, 1 man, 1 shilling, 1 vote has to be implemented because my region is suffering. I think it's merely because he's just realized that it is the right thing to do as a country today. So sometimes you may say some things out of the campaign mode, you may say some things out of because you're being influenced by those people around you. But then with time you realize that I may have made a mistake. Let me just stand back. I don't think he's being humiliated anyway. He's just gotten work and he's just trying to be Rigathi Gachagua. That's what he really is.
But the main reference on the People Daily is not even about the deputy president. It's about the president himself. It's about what he said and what he promised and what he's doing now. Do you agree with this assessment that the president, William Ruto, has become a master of double speak? He said he will not be part of people just travel, African presidents being summoned for an African summit where you go and you all sit around one person talking down at you. But we saw him do exactly that this past week on that issue with he has remained silent, even as his younger politicians tell off his deputy. And this is something he had promised that it will not happen under his regime. Something else on the demolitions. Remember, during Uhuru Kenyatta's time, there were demolitions somewhere in Nairobi, and they were highly criticized. No one expected that within the first 2 years of William Ruto's administration, we would see something similar. Now we've seen demolitions in Mathare and other areas along the Nairobi River. Is it correct for the People Daily to say that he has become a master of doublespeak?
It might be correct. I think most definitely, because sometimes that might happen if you look at the interest of the country. You see, if the president goes out and has to do the thing he has to do on behalf of the country, there are certain sacrifices that has to be made. And I think these are one of the sacrifices. You know, you may say that when you get in, you may not be someone, and this will happen and that will happen. But when you get to power, realize that power is different. Like I said, I've said this in many times, that the presidency is a symbol of national unity. The president is not just an individual. The president, even if you would have put a mere animal there, there are certain things, decisions that have to be made on behalf of the country. You see, William Ruto does not really stand and say that every decision that I make just has to be about Kenyans only. There are certain interests that has to be looked into. There's certain bilateral agreements that have to be made with other countries. So if you look at those interests, what is it that is made for Kenyans? And in terms of our relationship with other countries, there are certain decisions that must be made. So I think President could be a member of doublespeak when it comes to what's happening within the country today. But when it comes to outside, there are certain decisions you cannot just make. Remember, we not entirely rely on the resources that we collect as a country to be able to help us move forward. There are certain aid that we get out of the country. And so most of this may also be influenced by the people who give us this aid. So on that, I may not really blame the president. I have been on several occasions. Just the other day, I was out and most young people will come and tell me that, see, Victor, we see you go to the stations and you talk about the president and you say probably he's doing some things right, but you think things are going on wrong. Probably there are certain things he's doing wrongly. Actually, most young people feel like 90% of the things that the president is doing them wrong.
Yes.
90% of the promises.
Do you think that some of these promises he made were due to his lack of understanding of the job, that probably then he did not have the proper scope of work that he was getting into, and he could say so many things, but once he becomes president and reality hits, then he changes his tune, and now he has to deal with reality.
Remember, this was a deputy president for 10 years. This man has been in parliament for like 20 years. I don't think he doesn't understand what the job entails. And even the President Uhuru was not as rigid as President Ruto is. Uhuru gave a lot of latitude to President William Ruto today, then when he was a vice president. So he had the ability to understand how the administration works. Remember, most people used to say that Uhuru was always not the president that we expected him to be. So Ruto was handling the government then. That's according to the people, not my individual opinion. That's according to people.
It's according to
yes.
And even as we continue examining this claim, I'd like to welcome onto the set Brenda Ongalo, advocate of the High Court. Karibu sana, Brenda. As we continue looking and examining this headline on the front page of the People Daily on whether or not the president has become a master of doublespeak. Brenda, the People Daily has this as a main headline on the front page today, and they quote on page 4, they talk about the issues of which he has been criticized as saying one thing and doing another. One is in defending the position of his deputy, and you've seen what has happened in the recent past. Secondly, on the many overseas trips, and his initial claim that African leaders will no longer be part of teams to be summoned by one head of state from outside Africa, and they dashed there. But that's exactly what they did this past week. On the issue of demolitions, they had sensationally claimed that during the administration, no demolitions of residential houses will happen. We're now seeing demolitions in Mathare. On the cost of living and tax as well. Do you agree with that assessment by the People Daily, that he has become a master of doublespeak?
Good morning, Fred. I'd say I agree fully, by the way, because you look at the promises that the president came in to power with. He looks like he was shocked when he got there and realized, oh, this is not what I expected, and I have to twist my words every other time. He has to end up micromanaging all the sectors, but I remember he's one person, and he cannot micromanage all the sectors, and that is why he has CSs. He has all these people to help him achieve his goals, or to help him deliver his promises to Kenyans. Even on the issue of demolitions, that was very populist of him to say demolitions would not happen, given that we know how things have been. I mean, you only make such statements if you're living in a perfect state, and I use perfect very carefully because he knew the kind of structures that we have. He knew the kind of challenges that we face because of poor planning, because of land grabbing issues, people building on riparian land and all that. Unfortunately, he comes in and it's baptism by fire. There are floods, or he came in, there was drought. Then he comes in again, there are floods, and now he has to do what he has to do to at least try and make sure that he puts in measures. And as much as it was done very late, but how are these demolitions being done? Is it structured? Because now it turns out they're being done in a worse way than what they were criticizing before. Because now it is not structured. People are being told to leave areas. There is no provision for where they are going, or where there is no sufficient compensation in these current times, where even the opinion polls, you have a whopping 63% of people thinking that we are headed the wrong direction. So I think it's time that the president put his words into actions. And
what does that say about the voter? It would appear that the Kenyan voter must be among the most gullible, because even if you quote that opinion poll by Infotrack yesterday, there's still those who believe that the country is headed in the right direction, despite some of these obvious mishappenings. Victor?
I don't think we could call them obvious mishappenings. Who are the voters you're talking about? Who are these voters are we talking about? Most of the people who normally go out to vote, remember in this country, like middle class don't really vote. Most of them, they feel like they don't have the time. Most of them, they feel like, you see, I mean, why should I go and vote? I mean, I live in some good estate, I do things I want to do. I mean, I don't have time, you know. And so most of the decisions that are being made are made by extremely poor people and old people. And when I talk about extremely poor people, these are young people who would normally go out to make the noises that we normally make. And then there's a certain age group which of old people who also will come out in large numbers and vote, and mothers, you know. And I'm not going to say they are really gullible. I think they have reached to a certain point whereby they don't know who to trust. So they take 2 steps forward and 3 steps backwards because they don't know who to trust. When you've reached a certain breaking point, you just make decision out of impulse, because someone can come and tell you, see, these people are really good at selling homes.
Based on the promises of politicians?
Yes, based on the promises of politicians. So, like,
however outrageous.
Yes, however outrageous, because you don't have a decision anyway. Whether you go out and vote or you don't even go out and vote, they're still going to get to power. Remember, they have the resources. They have got everything that it takes to take them there. So I think to a certain extent, Kenyans are, maybe as we call them, gullible voters, But at the same time, it's like we don't have a choice anyway, yes. Until we reach to a point whereby we could actually be talking real issues affecting Kenyans, and we could talk about the middle class who normally work and they can actually articulate issues well. If they can come out in large numbers also to help those people who cannot understand things in the older people and the young people, so that we can come together and make a decision.
But looking at the current young Kenyan, and by that definition, I'm talking about the one between 20 and 35 years, the definition of a youth in Kenya. This is a youth that is exposed to a lot of information right now.
Yeah.
You cannot say that there's any information that's hidden from them. They know, they can tell between a lie and truth. They know what is outrageous, what is not. Yet, when it comes to voting for politicians, and not just the president, they appear to go with the populist announcements and declarations. Is that gullibility that I'm trying to examine? The Kenyan voter, is the Kenyan voter gullible?
The Kenyan voter is gullible, but gullible in the sense of we have access to this information. But how do we put to use this information that we do have? Because in as much as I have access to social media, the internet is there, and there are tons and tons of stories that you see, this politician made a promise, they did not. But you also look at the level of unemployment, then it brings that gullibility to life, because now I know we have commercialized our politics, that whoever goes out there and gives a youth 200 shillings, 50 shillings, that guy carries the day. It is what we have made our politics to be. Our political parties are not based on ideology. So we cannot discuss real issues, as Victor has mentioned, because you want to talk about these real issues, but what are the foundations of our political parties? Because if you have a political party that is purely, of course, political parties are for getting political power. But what are the discussions that are going on at that level? I'll say I am a member of this particular political party, but do I know what this political party stands for? What are the things that they would not be caught saying or doing or championing for? You realize that these very young people, initially there was no access to the internet, and that is why the older generation continue voting, because they learned civil education physically. There used to be people who could teach them, but now we have access to all this, but civic education is still lacking. Most of these young people will ask, why should I go and vote? Or I will go and vote for this.
Could actually fund some form of lethargy. And as far as involvement, civic involvement of the youth, that they have too much information up to a point that they feel, it's too much.
Yeah, because again, I start saying, like, you guys started voting in the 60s or in the 70s, you have been voting, nothing changes, so why should I vote? So it has become commercialized in that I'll say, even if I don't vote, nothing will change. So I'd rather get money from whoever, vote for that person because they've given me money, and come and regret, and the cycle continues. So we're at a very bad point in that the majority of the voter, because these young people again form the bulk of the voters, but there's the same people who may not go and vote, and they have been turned to machines to go make noise, and they show up because of youth unemployment.
And they don't really care about whatever this politician is saying. The question is, whatever the politician says, however outrageous, it does not matter to the voter. Is that what we are saying? That we will vote based on other issues, not on whatever the politician says. So even the politician, if it doesn't live up to the promises, it doesn't matter, because that was not the reason why we voted for him in the first place. Victor?
Just a simple example so that we know where this is headed. A number of times, most young people have asked me, when I come to the studio, they tell me, allow me to use Swahili for easy for other people to understand. Bro, jamaa wanakujenga aje. You see, nobody believes that you can actually do something for the people. It has to be about money. It has to be monetary. Like when I come here, someone expects that I'm being paid so that I can either support the government or don't support the government, you know. But most of the time it's just like we just come to the show so that we can actually talk to Kenyans and tell them the reality, what is on the ground. And we expect the most common mwananchi and the highest politician like the president to really see it from us. This is what's happening on the ground. So if a young person could ask me when I'm coming here with my own capacity, having understood the crowd and having been working with the crowd out there, and uliza kama unalipwa kitu ama wanakuzeka ngapi ama unajua, they feel like you have money, you know what I'm saying? And so if that can happen, what of a politician who has that 1,000 bob, who can go out and give that 1,000 shillings? Remember, this is not a problem to them. During election, towards the election time, you go to these people, they have money in boxes. You go to banks and you lack 100 shillings in bank. Unaweza enda kutafuta 10,000 change bank, they don't have 100 shillings.
Politicians
have drained the banks, you know. There are certain politicians, it reaches a point whereby you can go with some amount of money to the bank, just to exchange, and you find that the bank will openly tell you, we are not exchanging money, because there is no money to be exchanged. So politicians have become like pastors. I have no issue with pastors, but they're really good at what they do. But politicians are selling hope. If you tell a person today that just hold on for 1 week, najua una food leo, lakini hold on for 1 week, nitakupea 2K. Do you think this person will go and lose hope tomorrow? Atangoja for that 1 week. Bro, niambia utanipea wiki, wacha niambia landi, ujama atanipea ndamlipa after 5 days. That is what politicians are doing. They're selling hope.
That's what we are surviving on.
That's what we survive on. So when they're campaigning, that's what that's why you call the president a president of double speak. No. Of rather double standard, like he doesn't say what it really means, and when he gets to power, he doesn't actually implement what he said.
Okay, so it means that we do not have the right to demand that these politicians actually live up to their promises, Brenda, that we knew probably that they will never do it, but we still voted for them nonetheless.
That would be a bad way of looking at it, because number one, even that bribery is an offense. I think we just have an accountability issue generally, because we do know that you vote for this person, you have the right to recall them. It is stated in the law. You have all these measures to check them, but do we ever follow up on that? Because you try looking at it, it's accountability both on the leadership and even on the citizenry. Because if I'm the first person to say you are pigaing to A2, or you're targeting this person because of 1, 2, 3, this person pays me, and then the support is up to sycophantic levels. So it's about time we all check ourselves. And I say this because the young people need to understand the power that they do have. Having that majority in the voting bloc is a voice that, when exploited properly, can bring change. But are we ready for that? Are we ready to be held accountable? Before we seek to hold our leaders accountable, am I ready to be held accountable for my choices in making this leadership? Because our leaders have they have perfected this art of looking at the most emotive issues. During the campaigns, the issues were unga, fuel. Like, they look at what Kenyans are really emotive about at that particular point and cash on it.
Okay.
And then immediately that is done, then we see prices skyrocketing and whatever, and they come with this explanation. So we need to be independent by ourselves. You see this Pan-Africanist thing, and then it's gone. Now they're being summoned. Why did all these presidents need to leave? Like, where is the power of AU? Could they send one person? Because these are countries that are all struggling, and I don't want to talk about our country. These are countries that we are facing. There's shift implementation is purely not there.
Yeah. And back to that issue of the presidents going out, because William Ruto received quite some applause when he declared that. And all Africans were saying this is the right guy, not just Kenyans. Young Africans actually felt that for the first time we have someone who can actually lead us in a certain way, but very fast. He's gone back to the same modus operandi. He's back to traveling in a group, probably even being put in a bus together, like happened in the UK.
You see those photos.
What does it make you feel as an African?
For somebody who campaigned on that, I mean, it's better he did not even mention it. But you see, he mentioned it and made it look like this is something that we have to do. We have to bring back Africa. We are superior. We are sovereign, and we have to do this. We also have to be on that table to make decisions. We're supposed to be equal, because if you're an equal state, then you're supposed to be equal even with those masters that they would. But then we see him being summoned, and he goes, Haiti issue. You do not consider what are the feelings of your people, what are their opinion about these people going. You disregard any kind of advice that they give or any kind of displeasure that they have with what you are doing as a president, and want to obey a foreign master. Yet you came in on the basis of being a Pan-Africanist.
Is it really obeying a foreign master? Because we've always obeyed foreign masters. I mean, when was the last time we'd ever obeyed a foreign
But he campaigned.
I mean, even our own resources that we collect today, there's a question you asked me very important, and I'm going to revisit that. You asked that, is it that the president, when he got in, he did not really understand what the job entailed? And I think to some extent, the president may have understood, but he didn't really think about it much. He thought that actually the money that we collect maybe did not have a great idea of what the amount of resources that we collect.
So you finally agree. Yes, he did not have a proper understanding.
Yes, now I get it. Brent has really put it really
well. All right, hold that thought. It's time for us to take a break. I will be back to discuss a lot more on the youth perspective on State of the Nation right here on Morning Cafe.
Are you ready to elevate your business game?
Challenges come, we sort them, we move to the next one.
It is important to have insurance to litigate you.
The Grind, where business meets brilliance. Join us each week as we dive into the stories of the world's most driven entrepreneurs.
Kama wewe ni mfanyabiashara, huwezi kaa bure, unajipanga taratibu vile inavyofaa.
Kila mtu akae chonjo.
From startups to industry giants, learn the strategies that fuel growth and innovation.
Because you want a luxury brand, I will then develop this into a luxury brand.
Tune in every Monday at 7:30 p.m. because your business deserves the best.
Did you know that a dab of lavender essential oil can help alleviate the itching from insect bites? Lavender oil has calming and anti-inflammatory properties that can be soothing on the skin.
Over the past 5 years, we have grown in leaps and bounds. TV47 is now a formidable force in Kenya's media landscape, an achievement we couldn't have done without you, our audience. Your support has propelled us to new heights and has earned us recognition. Our journalists have been honored for their exemplary work and commitment to excellence. We are now the home of the Journalist of the Year, an award backed by our very own Elizabeth Atieno.
Put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, for Elizabeth Ochieng.
These recognitions are a testament of our growth story. You inspire us to push boundaries, tell compelling stories, and keep informing you with integrity and professionalism. We are committed to giving you more news, more stories, and more entertainment. Stay tuned to TV47.
Did you know that tilting the head back during a nosebleed is not recommended? It's more effective to lean slightly forward and pinch the nostrils together to help stop the bleeding.
Niregea kinyozi, hapa hakuna kunyalewa na deni.
Kila kiongozi kiongozi ana hadithi yake ya kipekee.
Wazazi wangu walikuwa bit strict kwa sababu mamangu mwenyewe, mimi kutoka kuzaliwa sijailala nje.
The white small one, huyo ana sniff gunpowder na risasi na bomb. Alafu huyo mwingine ni ridgeback ana sniff simba.
Even the employees knows that. So when in the boardroom is the chairman, the CEO, and the rest of.
At what point are you a wife?
The minute you get to that inside that door, you become now the wife.
Na kila maamuzi wanayoyafanya hufichua mengi kuhusu utu wao na uongozi wao.
We see God blessing us, and we now realize the power of giving also has to be rewarded back.
Kupitia kipindi Mfahamu Kiongozi, tunakuletea mahojiano ya kusisimua na uchambuzi.
Examining the headlines, State of the Nation, this being a Friday, it's a youth perspective. I'm still in studio with Victor Odhiambo, governance expert, and Brenda Ongalo, advocate of the High Court. Now joining the panel, Nelly Chepkemoi, public policy practitioner. Karibu sana. Just before the break, we were examining the front page of the People Daily, and the main headline says, Master of Doublespeak, criticizing President William Ruto for some of the promises he made and some of the promises he has continued to make, and the fact that he has not lived up to those promises. And key among them was the sensational declaration that African president will no longer be traveling outside the country to go collectively to meet one leader from outside Africa, yet this week we've just seen exactly that. He also promised to protect his deputy, and you know what has been happening. On the issue of demolitions, they promised that no more demolitions will happen under this administration. In Mathare, demolitions are going on. I want to add one more thing to this. The front page of the People Daily, the Business Daily, has a very interesting headline. 800,000 people get hustler loans outside system. This was one of the major promises. The Hustler Fund issued 465 million shillings loans to 809,000 Kenyans who had not registered for the product, exposing flaws in the operations of the microcredit scheme targeted at low-income groups. Question is, this is one huge promise by the president, but one wonders what the benefits will be if at all the implementation is so haphazard as to allow 800,000 people to access loans without proper documentation. So many things have been promised, so many mega promises. Do you agree with that assessment that the president has become a master of doublespeak?
I think I want to agree with it because they came in first with a promise of uplifting Kenyans' lives. But currently we are actually witnessing a crisis. It's actually the opposite of what they said. And one good example that actually accompanies that headline is the way the African presidents have been summoned, so to speak. And that is one thing he was really loud and huge on, considering that they already have an African Union. And it's also ironical because the same leadership of African Union is at that meeting. So one would also wonder why would, I actually commend the Tanzanian president. I've not seen her. That's one woman we really need to focus and look at her leadership style, because she lives up to her word. Because if you are a president of a country and you don't live to your word, then people lose confidence in you. People lose confidence in your leadership. Remember, you are the unifying factor. So if at all you can even go against your word, then people start to question. Yeah. Okay.
And you wanted to add something, Victor, just before the break. Let me give you that opportunity now.
Yeah, so there was a question you actually addressed concerning, did the president not really understand the job that he was actually trying to get in the first place? To some extent, yet, he didn't understand it. Probably thought that we collect way too much, and we can actually do what we want. We actually don't need the IMF and the World Bank and the rest. We can live with our own means. And then I can realize that this thing is not...
It doesn't work like that.
It's actually difficult. But then let me also say this one very simple thing. The kind of taxes that are being imposed on us so that we can actually increase our domestic revenues, could it be the reason why could the issue of the president really addressing the promise that he made before he got into power, saying that we are not going to be addressed by other people? did he make a turn because he realized that we cannot actually live within our means, and that's why we need to increase our taxes so that you can live within our means, so that you can be able to make decisions? Could that be also one of the reasons why the taxes have increased? Could that be one of the reasons why we're increasing our tax base? Because utasema, you can't actually come and say that I don't need you and I live in your house. Like, I mean, I don't need a landlord. I mean, I rent a house. I can't even afford to own a house. So probably could this be the reason why we're having this punitive taxes being imposed on us? And so we need to increase our tax base, increase our domestic revenue, so that we can be able to live within our means, so that we don't need quote unquote.
But then again, every politician would argue the same, that you do not really understand the job until you get to do it. Hence, the promises you make before you actually sit on that seat should not be taken as seriously, Brenda.
I want to disagree with that, because we are talking about somebody who was deputy president for 10 years continuously in the previous government, and then he comes in. But you do realize that the presidency is not this one person. The presidency is an institution. There are institutions that are constant. There are people he found there, who's the head of public service. There are all these ministries that have people who are not politicians, and these are the same people who are supposed to help or guide the president understand the workings of government, or the workings of what the presidency actually means and how to move about it. That is why there's always a transition duration. So during that transition period, hata kama ni attachment, surely it should have been an internship sort of for the president to learn and see.
He was an intern for 10 years.
He was an intern, so he has no reason. You only need, even the law bars you from being an intern for more than 6 months. So he did it for 10 years.
Yeah.
That should not be an excuse that he would have. Campaigning, as I said, the reason we have a problem is our political parties, our campaigns are not issue-based. It is about populism, it's about tribalism, it's about who gives you what at that particular point, and then that's it. So you want to hold your leader accountable, but I gave you money. So I bought your voice, technically. So the president should have, I think he started on a very wrong footing. Number one, how he chose his cabinet, because there are outlines on separating politicians from the technocrats. I mean, you are supposed, when you realize that the CSs that you have do not have those qualifications, we have a National Assembly that is weak at this point. They do not debate on issues. You look at how they debate on issues that are facing Kenyans, and you sympathize with yourself, because some of them do not have a proper understanding. These people would rather go and talk about the finance bill kwa matanga or in some public spaces and all. But when it comes to having the real issue discussed in the House of Parliament, they either don't show up and there's no quorum, or they abstain from voting, or they come and vote because somebody said, or they have been whipped by this political party to come and vote in a particular way. So they're basically just serving their own interests and not the interests of Kenyans. So the president has no excuse in saying, I did not know, or what I found here is not what I expected to find, because he did not campaign to be president to be caught by surprise, unless he wasn't sure he was going to win. When you go into a political context, there are only two options. You win, and you should be prepared for either. So you're prepared to lose and concede, or win and do the job. So the president has actually failed Kenyans in a manner that I think those who had a belief in him, you mentioned the Hustler Fund. I mean, this government has had a problem of coordination, because how do you have all these monies going out? These are monies that are taken from the same coffers, public coffers, that you are complaining that are not enough. You want to enlarge the tax base, but how? Because the purpose of enlarging this tax base is so that you get more money and you're able to keep your promises, you're able to have more money to disburse hustler funds. But this same thing that you're looking for money to fund is being mismanaged.
But we also cannot excuse the voter, and there's a question I posed to them, that the Kenyan voter made up largely of young people between the ages of 20 and 35, largely gullible, that any politician can feel very comfortable to give any outrageous promise, and he knows he doesn't need to deliver.
So I was just trying to relate to that question and what she's just said, and also what my colleague panelists said as well. I think while we talk of the tax base, we have a problem as a country of a ballooning public sector and a shrinking private sector. So if you want to increase your tax base and you're killing the private sector, then there's no way you will meet that. The kind of ballooning public sector I'm talking about is the government expenditure, because with the government expenditure, it increases as the size of the government also increases. So while the president talks of us living within the means, I think he should be addressing it to his government, because what we're experiencing right now in a country, we are in an economic crisis as a country, but there's a display of opulence by government officials, which does not really relate well to people, and that is now how the citizenry is starting to lose confidence. You've talked of the youth, that topic I like very much, but so I want to believe there was also an issue as to why youth even didn't participate. Some of them didn't. There was voter apathy from the youth being the majority again in the country. I want to believe there's also some barriers that are still not allowing our youth to properly participate or fully participate, and she's somehow alluded to it, our political parties. I want to believe the political parties in our country form the basis of an election in this country. So if we are even to witness a change in our political arena, then we must begin from the political parties. These youths that we have in our political parties, they need to be, they need to take up the spaces or the leadership in their opposition, because as it stands, we have political parties that have youth leagues just for paper. But they are not really active, or they are only active during campaign times. But you don't get to see this same youth league being included in the election boards, in the national councils of the parties. So I want to believe that if we are really to change the political arena, we must begin with the political parties.
Okay.
Yeah.
And looking at some of the news pieces coming from that InfoTrack poll. That was released yesterday. And the opinion polls show that the youth aged between 27 to 35 and adults aged 45 to 50 expressed similar views that the country needs to be headed in the right direction. And of course, most of them pointed to the high taxation imposed on them and all these things. Interestingly, they said that up to 54% of Kenyans have a relatively good understanding of this discussion around the finance bill. It's something we mentioned, that there's a lot of information out there, there are a lot of discussions, and people have engaged in this to a great extent, probably this time much better than we did last year. Yet we see, and if you look at some of the cartoons, there's an indication that despite the debate, despite the heightened understanding and all this, we will still go through the pain, because members of parliament will still vote one way or the other based on party allegiances. What does that make you feel as a youth, Victor? That despite what you feel about the taxation measures, it is not up to you?
It's quite sad, not only me as a youth. It's quite sad to probably all Kenyans, even if at the end of the day we have no choice. This is a bed that we made and we have to lie on it. We had the opportunity to go out and do what we were supposed to do as a young person and as any other Kenyan. We didn't do it. And I think probably...
When didn't you do it?
During the election.
On election day.
On election
day. Okay, just
on election day, we didn't do what we were supposed to do. And so we probably have no choice, because the government has the majority in parliament. If they want anything to pass, it will pass. Funny thing is that even there are very many young people in parliament today who also don't have a choice because of party allegiance and the party politics, so they have to align with that. And maybe as Kenyans, we learn by mistakes. So probably next time when we are supposed to do what we are supposed to do, go out and vote, and we are choosing our own, we need to be a little bit sane when we are making these decisions. At the moment, there is not much we can do. Okay, I will not say there is not much we can do, because we are 40 million Kenyans against some 200 and something MPs. We can go out in large numbers and go to parliament and say enough is enough. Several countries have done that. We just don't have, and we also have the internet. We can influence if you want to. Why we are not doing that, I'm not really understanding. You know, we don't want to go out and just do what we are supposed. We are just comfortable where we are. We're comfortable with the little that we have. We're comfortable with living from hand to mouth. We're comfortable with very little things. Let us just get serious for once and say, as much as they have the voice in Parliament, that is not what the voice that we want to hear as young people and as Kenyans. That's not the voice that we send them to go there and represent. We can actually decide to come out and do what we are supposed to do. Let's go out, hold these people accountable. Let's go to Parliament. Young people have done that. Kinaboni did that with the pigs and the rest. We can actually go and do the same. If we don't really want the finance bill and we are serious that we don't want it, then it will not pass through. They can pass it in Parliament, but we Kenyans will not go, we are not going to accept it.
Yes.
We can go out in large numbers and it will small Parliament. And
Brenda, you saw what happened in, last year with the Finance Act when it was still a bill, and there was a lot of debate on taxation measures, whether or not the level of VAT on fuel should go back to 16% from 8%. All this were discussed, same as this year. You can see the headlines, Musiguse Mkate on the front page of Taifa Leo, and on the Daily Nation, which is the biggest daily in Kenya, why Kenyans reject tax bill. Kenyans are speaking out. Kenyans understand this. Kenyans are very well versed with what is happening. But the fact of the matter is, this finance bill might just pass the same way it did in last year. What does that make you feel?
It kind of makes me feel hopeless, because why have public participation for the sake of it? Why call experts? Why have experts bodies? Why have people in barazas present their views on a particular law that you have heard, and they give you their opinion? We saw it happen with the housing levy. We've seen it happen with the chief. Because we realized we were not ready for this transition. But every time we talk about this, every time all this is done in the name of public participation, we see it go to waste. Parliament has forgotten its representative role. They want to be bosses upon themselves. They want to listen to every other voice apart from the people they're representing. They're forgetting that they are there as representatives of these people, because the 47 million or so of us cannot sit there and make laws for ourselves. We elected these particular people to go and represent our voice. It is not enough that they are there. There are structures where they get to listen, and they have these committees, and they call in experts who come and air the views of the general public and tell them, this is what the people are saying. You have gone to a public baraza. We have had these debates. People are calling in, sending messages. There's social media. You can generally read the mood of Kenyans. They're saying, okay, fine, this may be a very good thing, but we cannot afford to do it now, given our circumstances. But then you come and realize that all this is an academic exercise, and when they go there, even the opposition that is supposed to help check the government will not show up there. Or when they show up, it will be to create chaos and all that, and people are whipped in a particular manner, and they serve the interests of whoever the proposers of this are. But you know what pains me more is the finance bill may just pass as it is, because again, what more are we supposed to do? We will go to court, object, it will drag. We saw it with the previous finance bill, we saw it with the housing levy. Eventually your salary,
it went the way they wanted it to go.
Yeah, so you end up with a myriad of court cases against this that are never solved. By the time they are solved, because again of the backlog and all that, the public is already feeling the pains of having passed this particular law. But what pains me more is, in as much as you want to extend this, enlarge the tax base, where is this money going to? Are we going to see it being used in real projects? Are we going to see it being put in proper use? Because again, we told the next year, our time will again pass, we'll see doctors back on the streets, because the monies that are being collected will be used for something totally different. So that's a special kind of pain, again.
Do you share in that pain and sense of hopelessness that the Kenyan youth are feeling? That, fine, we may say what we feel about this finance bill, but at the end of the day, chances are it will just pass as it is.
I mean, as it looks like, I think I want to share on that with that, because this parliament has been taken captive by the executive. We saw immediately the new regime came into power, or when they were sworn in, the first meeting he did was to have all independent MPs. Soon enough, they were now on the president's side.
Do we have independent MPs in parliament anymore?
We don't even have them anymore. So they like already captured them, and then he also started like, you know, taking also some of our members from our Azimio coalition, which is sad. But I don't want to agree with what she said, that all members of parliament, because I want to believe there are a few members there who are actually doing their job. But when it comes to the floor of the House, again, it's about tyranny of numbers. The executive already captured. So whatever we do, they have. It's like he has the numbers, kind of telling the citizens to do. But that's not really what I think. We saw last time when there was the Finance Act of 2023, we actually ended up losing 70,000 jobs just because of that act. So right now I'm imagining with all these other new introduced taxes and more taxation, then we are likely to see a very massive loss of jobs. Already companies, the international ones, are already threatening they want to exit the Kenyan market. Number two, I also want to believe that all these taxes, I think there was a day we were discussing about this, and they're like IMF dictated boxes. I don't want to believe this is just the regime coming up with all these taxes. Some of them are like conditions set for them in order, you know, when they're given that loan by the IMF or World Bank. If I give you my loan, I would expect you to give you conditions.
Yep.
So I want to believe some of these insensitive taxes are because of, you know, they are like IMF dictated boxes. Like, we gave you money, so you have to do this.
You have to toe the
Yeah,
line.
so that is where now we, yeah.
And a direct result of taxation, many would feel, should be better services. That once we pay more, we expect more in as far as services are concerned. But if we look at some...
if I may just ask what my two colleagues have said. You see, does it mean that Kenyans, the president and probably most of the politicians know that we are not angry enough? And so it will just continue. Like when you people say that they have the majority in parliament and there is not much we can do, does it mean that for the next 5 years, whatever happens, whatever decision they make, we have to accept it because they have the majority in parliament?
Yeah, so far it appears that is a...
No, so does it really mean that entirely we have no control, there's nothing we can do totally? Like Aman, is it because hatujachoka enough? Like Kenyans are not really
Let me give you an even better
bread is 100 shillings, we'll just buy it.
Let me give you an example on the university funding model, because this one touches the youth directly.
Yeah.
Now, because of the cuts in the education sector and the new university funding model introduced by this administration, students and their families are now being forced to choose university courses that they can afford. Yeah. So if at all you even qualified for medicine and you go and check the invoice for that, it gives you an amount, I think, 600 or 700,000 per year, and without guaranteed scholarship or loans from government, that the family has to take it up directly. That means that people who qualify for such courses are changing, meaning that Kenyans are finding it easy to adjust. Instead of pursuing what they would have, they're finding it easy to adjust and leave out a degree and go and do a diploma course instead. Don't you think that that in itself is an indication of the kind of stretch capacity that Kenyans have, that yet they are still not as angry as you would expect them to be? They feel that they can still adjust.
They can. That's exactly what I'm saying. I feel like Kenyans are not really pushed to the wall. I mean, the Kenyans still feel like we can, bado tunaweza. Unajua watasema bread hata kama ni 200 ama the university. Tutalipa. At the end of the day, lazima tuamke lazima tukule. See what is happening about these flood issues and what's happening outside. They said that they are going to give around 200 million for 40,000 homes. That was supposed to translate to 10,000 shillings per home. Up to date, if you ask, yesterday it was on news, and the chiefs were saying, hiyo pesa ilikuwa kwa TV, umeiona wapi? And then Kenyans Kenyans bado watamka wakae hapo, na chief bado atamka ende kwa ofisi na kae comfortably.
And everyone is okay.
And everyone is okay. Na hakuna mtu atamka ande aulize chief, we cannot actually, watoto wamelala nje. The other day it rained heavily. Mothers and children were sleeping outside, and they woke up in the morning to go and fetch for what they can eat. The chief woke up in the morning to go in his office and sit comfortably. You know, and Kenyans didn't do anything, and nobody said anything. Does it mean that we are not really pushed to the wall and we don't have a choice?
Brenda, do you agree with that?
Unfortunately, we are a country of rule of law. So being pushed to the wall, what does that mean? Because me being pushed to the wall would mean I challenge this in court. Me being pushed to the wall would mean I write to Parliament to inform policy. Me being pushed to the wall would mean I find a platform to engage my MP. I find a platform to engage the leadership and talk to them and tell them 1, 2, 3. But what exactly can we do collectively? Because again, we're forgetting that we are a country we are a population that is easily divided on tribe, easily divided on classes, easily divided on 2A2. So when we say we have been pushed to the wall, you realize that when you want to leave that wall and you want to push back, you are by yourself, or the other person is helping the leadership to push you back because it's not enough. So it is until we address classism, tribalism, and all, we address it within ourselves first and realize that
we are yet to be pushed hard enough.
Yes.
We still
so maybe we should just be pushed until we say no.
We are yet to be pushed so that we address that.
I am disagreeing because people are doing things. As you say, we are comfortable. We are not comfortable. One thing, and I like that you've touched about the university funding model. Sometimes as a country, or more or less many times, the language that comes in the government documents is not really citizen-friendly. So you find there are people, as you say, nobody is doing something. I want to believe people are doing something. We have, through our CBO, we are now establishing integrity and transparency clubs in higher institutions, in the colleges, TVETs, and universities. So what we are letting them know is about these policies, that they can find there are different ways you can actually question your government. It's not really always about maandamano or the streets. As she has mentioned, you can actually summon your MP. I think that is also one thing the citizenry may not know. That an MP works for you. You can actually summon them anytime to ask questions. But what we've seen over time as a country is we've made these people it's like we worship them. But people, I want to believe, as time goes by, the youth are actually waking up. The citizenry is waking up. So if
when you say the youth are waking up, and that's my question, and you know we've tried over and over to examine this here.
So now what I was just mentioning to you people, now through the established integrity clubs that we are trying to establish throughout the country, we've so far established in 3 regions. And it's like a consortium of universities within the specified region. So we actually giving them the skills on how to, petition government, on how to write memorandums. I want to believe that is one way the youth are doing. And number 2 is again the streets way. We saw Mama Mboga in Parliament yesterday. People have already started coming out. People are speaking out on social media.
It is a comedian who was leading that. And my question is, when you say that the youth are finally coming up and presenting memoranda and presenting petitions to government, the new university funding model is something that affects them directly. They, probably classes that were there probably in the 2nd or 3rd year university, have been in a season where the funding model was different. Now they're affected by a new funding model that was not there before. Yet we've not even seen a single petition from students to the government trying to challenge this new funding model. Previously, university students were very active in agitating not just for their own rights, but for the rights and the issues that were for the entire nation. Right now, even for their own issues that affect them directly about their own school fees.
Fred, that was killed by the Duale bill, because initially, before that bill came into play to universities, that is when you saw the civic engagement that the students were engaging in. Because when that bill came into play, it kind of surpassed the voice of the students, whereby you only need specific delegates to speak up. So I want to believe that is number one thing that is also making students not...
Isn't that one thing that they should actively seek to reverse?
They should reverse it, and I want to agree with you. So we need to now find, now us seated here as youth leaders, that is a conversation that needs to begin. It should have begun. How do we now, you know, ask this parliament? It saddens me because just recently, a day ago, the education committee in parliament called the PS for education. And they've actually now recalling admission letters to universities. It's already a blunder we are witnessing, that the education sector is being killed in this, by this government. You cannot, when you look at the budget estimates, they are like defunding school feeding programs. They are reducing budgets for health. They are reducing the allocation for the funding, you know, the capitation that goes to the higher institutions. It's really not fair, and you know, they are increasing their allocation with the executive. So I think this needs to be a conversation that, not just one-time conversation, a continuous, because once we have such conversations, then the mindset of even that person who had lost hope and didn't want to care more about politics and how their government, because now as a student, if you do not care anymore, then
it affects you directly.
It affects you. So that's why I'm saying the conversation needs to be taken very full force, because their mindset starts opening up and they start now to question the government.
Yes, this has a potential to disenfranchise a whole generation of students who had hoped probably to pursue degree courses in universities, but because of the new funding model, they won't be able to. Going forward, that will affect even the economic input in this country.
Remember when Ruto and co were coming into power, there were so many issues surrounding degrees and issues with education, and probably education was not given that much priority. We have a very own good governor, Sakaja, someone I highly respect, had issues with the credibility when educational certificates were concerned, and not only him. And in fact, when it came to the issue of papers, they will campaign and say ati degree sio kila kitu, degree ndio inaenda kuongoza. Na wengi hata saizi wenye wako ndani bado they don't believe that you actually need to go to be educated for you to be probably a leader. So that also explains why you see the issue with education. I think reasons why Kenyans feel like wanaangusha issue na shule au paper au yenye wanafaa ipe. And it's really bad for a government not to give it. There are two important things in this country, education and health. You see, when you don't deal with that properly, you're actually losing a whole generation, because see,
it is the whole point of taxation.
The whole point
you
of taxation.
pay tax so that those two things at least
can be. See, even this motor vehicle tax that today has an issue. Most people will argue that like a motor vehicle, like a vehicle is probably la tuseme tu ni kitu starehe. Most people will argue like that, you know, and they expect like let's say we tax the 2.5% for 500,000 vehicles at 500,000 Kenyan shillings. We're talking about close to 6 billion Kenyan shillings. If the government really knows what Kenyans need the most basic, simple explanations of how you're using this money. Ukisema ati tumetoa 6.5 billion tumeweka kwa madawa, so mara moja uwe na cost 10 bob, kesho ita cost 5 bob. I mean, Kenya anaelewa hiyo language. Unaelewa? So when you go out and talk to Kenyans about unaongelea terms kubwa GDP, I don't increment on what Kenyans don't really understand that. Wanataka the most simplest explanation.
But they do understand that school fees for universities is now a problem.
They understand school fees is now a problem.
My question is now, what will you do? Because as you said, and we're talking about the pain and whether or not we are yet to reach that threshold where pain becomes too much. But if at all the university student in 2024 cannot fight for his right to have proper university funding, then how will we resolve this?
We are a perfect example of a country where education has been an equalizer. The leaders, what we see, the crop of leaders that are now probably near exiting the scene, the Orengos of this world, are products of active university student bodies. So that is where the leadership starts. That is where the voice starts to be heard. But we have over time seen a population of university students who are comfortable with anything. Right now, you can no longer have access to the student loans, or the way you're going to receive it is structured in a way that is prohibitive even to yourself. So chances are you're not even sure you're going to get it. Whatever subsidies that the government has been giving for schools is being done away with, or if it comes in too late. We saw the other time, the other day, teachers were threatening to go on strike because the capitation had not been disbursed to schools. And we have seen so many blunders in the education sector, including even the opening of schools. Coincidentally, we were with you on set when that notice came, and it comes in at 2 a.m.
Yes,
and like, why are we tampering with the most basic, like the most powerful tool we can hand our generation? Because these people know that if you have an educated populace, then they can easily talk to these things. Because we've realized that Kenyans are not daft. The fact that they have an understanding, that 54% of the population have an understanding of what discussions are taking place, it only means that they need to be angry enough. These university students need to take back their voice. Because if somebody takes your voice away from you and you are comfortable, they'll continue pushing you.
It becomes the excuse. The Duale bill did
so
this to us, so we're okay.
They did away with this, and now we can only... Like, the university student unions have been reduced to class prefect or school head boy, and we no longer hear their voices. It is time that that voice is back, because if these people are out there and they're making that noise, the entire population, I mean, once a young person is doing something, that voice is not being heard from one particular place. Because if today Sonu is revamped and Sonu becomes Sonu, Muso is Muso, that voice is being heard in Eldoret, it's being heard in Nairobi, it's being heard in Meru and Naivasha and Mombasa and wherever, then that could be the change. It could be more effective, because these are people who understand what their problems are, and they're young people, and the fact that they can unite just for this purpose would speak a lot to the government.
And you seem to have hit the nail right on the head, that and this Duale bill that you've used on this panel before, Nelly, so many times, probably that is what needs to be worked on. That in itself, at least, is already a problem that has been identified, that this is what needs to be reversed for the university student to have his voice back. But how come there's no such attempt from anywhere?
Even the students themselves. Nothing.
So I think now something needs to be done about the students. We can all, the three of us, just go and, talk to them and let them know that, can you also write to them? Because if we already know they are settled and we have active ones outside, we can actually reach out to them. That is number one step. Number two, I want to believe the power of dialogues. The conversations, if they keep on talking about this issue, then that is something they can effect. The first hit on the nail was the Finance Act 2023. This is the second hit with this act. I mean, the bill, it isn't yet an act. So I want to believe, people are being stretched. This is the second hit on the nail. And once that is done, then I want to believe we will have a shift in the country. There'll be a conversation that the leadership will now, be awakened to the people's voice. And it's just also a cry to our leaders that please listen to the citizens. If you really cared about the citizens. Our parliament should rise to the occasion. The amendment you're even talking about, it is still happening in parliament. But with the current parliament that we have, you can even question if it can even affect that. But that is a conversation that really needs to, be taken upon to. And just as I've said, Kenyans need to be let know that they can actually summon their MPs and ask them to do the necessary. So even with this finance bill, I want to really urge our parliament to rise to the occasion, because everyone is watching.
Yes, and if we may focus on parliament for a while now, they say the same way, like the Duale bill. We've used the fact that the executive seems to have an overriding influence on the Houses of Parliament, and we're using it more as an excuse, but not something that we can change. Do you feel that probably the citizens have an opportunity to change how the National Assembly works and relates with the executive? Is it possible?
Yes, it's very possible because just like she said, we have a huge responsibility apart from the executive and the parliament who are not really, they don't give Kenyans that much priority to go out and tell them what you can actually do as a Kenyan. We have the platforms that we can actually teach young people and other Kenyans that just like you said, you can actually summon your MP. I mean, you can go out and your voice can also be heard. Don't be afraid. You can decide to do something. So you don't have to be quiet all the time. Like the decision have to be made on your behalf. Yeah, just it's upon us. I mean, we can go out and it doesn't have to be violence. It doesn't have to be through mandamano. It doesn't have to be through fighting ethnicity and such like. We can just decide to have conversation among ourselves. And I think we have the platform. I mean, social media is big. We can use social media to do one or two things that can actually change this country and move the country forward. You see, our grandmothers and our mothers, some of them are not tech savvy like us. Some of them do not have the opportunity to talk the way they want to talk. But even our mothers have chamas that they normally articulate their issues. Those chamas are what today the members of parliament go out to use when they want to probably ask for votes. They'll go out and give them chicken and the rest. So we can actually even go back to the villages and educate our mothers that you may not be tech savvy, that you can actually use social media like Twitter and TikTok and the rest to articulate your issues. But within yourselves, in your chamas, you can actually talk within yourselves and come up with decisions that can actually move the country forward. So it doesn't have to be just a youth responsibility. Once the civic education has been done and is out there, every Kenyan has the right to express themselves in different ways possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
And probably the youth complaining probably due to lack of information, if I may say that, in as far as the spaces they can engage in. Victor mentions correctly that the space that they engage in, mostly social media, is a huge space and probably a possible game changer. We've seen social media changing. Revolutions have been actually started on social media. I'm not activating for a revolution. I'm not agitating for a revolution by any chance.
Revolution could mean different things.
Yes, but conversations do start from that perspective. But the Kenyan youth appears to be a bit lax. Do you share in that disillusionment, even in as far as the conduct of the National Assembly is concerned, that
such statements have been made, and we have been made to believe that the youth are doing nothing. I have the privilege of sitting in as a co-secretary general of a political party, and most of our members are young people. Even within the National Executive Council and the National Governing Convention, they're young people, and they have this voice and they have these ideas. The problem that we have experienced has been, who's going to hear this voice? I'm going to use it. Yes, we are going to do hashtags.
So at the party level, your voice is not heard?
No, at the party level, my voice is heard, and that's why I'm the Secretary General of that party. But we do have this. But you see, when you
Nelly disagrees. She says you have youth leagues just for the sake of it, just for name.
At least my party.
Which party is this?
The United Green Movement.
Okay.
Yes. So at least my party listens to the youth, and they have been the ones who tell us we are exiting this scene. That's why we have a blend of this. So as the youth, what do you want to do? So you find university students and you tell them, okay, so what issues are you facing? The issue is, what if we just talk and nobody hears? What if we do? So there's need for that persistence. But again, we are a microwave generation. We think that this revolution or change that we're looking for should come instantly. As youths, we also need to learn to plan with the long term. Let us not plan with 5 years, because the cycle that we have had is we are in a country that is on a perpetual campaign mode, because right now there are people who are fighting at the county levels because we've been talking about national level. We're forgetting what is happening at our counties, and it is the same thing that is being replicated. We devolved all the bad manners from the national government to the county governments. So even at the county government level, the issues of corruptions, the issue of the youth not being heard, the issue of youth lacking representation at that particular point, or having being flower girls. So just you've been given this position just kujaza so that you meet that threshold.
The numbers look good.
Yeah, the numbers look so good, but your voice is stifled at that point. So what are the youth supposed to do? Think long term. It is not about 5 years, because if you think about 5 years, elections have been made to be very expensive in this country. You may not have that much resource to make it there. Another issue would be, we have had a few, they're not so many, but few times that we've seen very young people. We're surprised to see very young people being elected. I think right now we have the most youthful parliament since its inception.
Is it consequential?
Is it? Yeah, because now you're wondering, these young people that we elected and they're now in parliament.
Some of them chair very crucial committees,
yes,
even in budget discussions.
Yeah.
And they're the ones giving a very outrageous statement.
So you start questioning if, is our problem really an age matter? Because if we have the young people and they're the ones who are now, the moment they're there, they're the ones who come back and stifle your voice. Like, why did we elect this young person? Because they're supposed to come with fresh ideas and all, but they go there and the whole thing of wine in old wineskins, new wine in old wineskins and whatever. So it becomes a problem trying to even convince someone the next time that vote for a youthful person, because what will this youthful person do for me or do differently that I would not do? That's why I'm saying, let us plan long term and let us learn to hold our leaders accountable, young or old. Yeah, because we have a recall clause.
And that's a statement that is bandied around, that we need to hold our leaders accountable. We have a recall clause, but no one has ever executed that recall clause.
So as you speak of that, I think I agree with that we also have a responsibility to, hold our leaders accountable. But how effective is it? But again, I'm also thinking in a different perspective, whereby it is their mandate to ensure we have, the good life, to ensure the citizens get quality health care, quality education. So it is actually the mandate of the government. I really wish the government of the day would emulate what Rwanda is doing. The president of Rwanda, His Excellency Kagame, actually holds public forums to be accountable to its citizens. They come to the citizens and tell them, we have set aside this for this, and this is how it is being spent. So I think that's one way our leadership can also try and emulate, because they are always talking and telling us they want to emulate, they want to make Kenya, as Singapore. If we are talking of being an accountable nation, it is also their mandate as leaders, as the president, who is now the top of the, the top head and the top tune. He needs to come to a point where he can actually come and face Kenyans and tell us that I've set aside this. You don't go to a rally and say, we've set aside this and this, but it is not really being felt. That is one thing people can do as well. I want to believe.
But the question is, have we lost it when it comes to this accountability trend, where we claim that, yes, we need to hold our leaders accountable, but how do we? Are you even aware of how you can hold your MCA accountable, Victor? Leave alone the president, whom we accuse of doublespeak right now, down to probably the MPs, but are Kenyans, or is a voter aware of how to hold accountable your MCA to begin with?
Funny thing is, today, Kenyans are much more aware. I can give you an example. Where I come from, our MCA is right in our estate group. So whenever there's a difficulty, you'll normally just tag him and mwambie, say, kuna shida hapa. Kuna portal, there's no water somewhere. But funny thing is, something that I've realized is that even those people who normally contribute in those our estate issues, they're not young people. They are not even there in the first place. And most of the people who contribute and ask or rather articulate issues whenever there's an issue within the estate, there are people of a certain age group. I don't want to mention them, but they are elderly people. Ndo wanakujanga wanasema, kuna pali, kuna shida, security is not being checked or what.
So where do the youth speak?
The youth they normally don't speak. Like I said when I started, youths are comfortable with what they have. A youth, as long as anaweza amka asubuhi, anaweza afford kukula, anaweza afford kufeed familia yake kidogo, I feel ni kama kuna kitu kingine inafaa ifanyike. So until ile siku yenye utaona ni kama even for you to be able to have a good life, your neighbor also needs to have a good life. Ukiona your neighbor, like, usifikirie wewe mwenyewe peke yako. Ukiishi na watu vizuri, ama ufikirie the next person mwenye anaishi kando yako, pia akiishi vizuri utakuwa na security. Kama aishi vizuri atakuibia. So until that we have that conversation whereby we all responsible as Kenyans and as individuals and take care of our neighbors right next to you, then we will have a good conversation. But as long as it's self-centered, that as long as I can be able to feed myself and feed my family, I'm good to go. I can drive my good car and I can be able to, because I went to school, I think the conversation will always be the same. We'll not care about who becomes a leader or who is chosen as an MP. That will not be an issue. The poor people within among us will be able to wake up in the morning and choose the leaders because I'm poor 50 bob or 100 shillings. And then once the leaders make the decision on the finance bill, si ndo tunakuja tunaumia zaidi, unaona.
And then we vent on social media.
And then we vent on social media because we have tuko na capability ya kununua bundles. Wow. So tukue watu responsible enough as Kenyans so that to relay the information because we have the capability to do that. Let us teach one another on how to be responsible citizens.
Brenda, on holding leaders accountable, is it an ideal that we are able to probably execute, not just aspire to?
It is. But it should start from us. Like, are we able to hold ourselves accountable first? Because it is easier to point a finger at that leader. But how are we holding ourselves accountable? Do I wake up? Do I go and vote? Do I articulate my issues when there's an issue? Do I do this public participation, as much as it may end up being an academic exercise? But when, if you look at the contributions that the public has had during the last finance bill debate, and eventually it passed, and this, you see there has been an increased awareness, there has been an increase. So it is these voices, the moment that you're talking about it, when you have the privilege to understand more and you're able to help people understand what exactly is happening, you're helping create that voice. As a youth, bundles, whatever, internet bundles are already expensive. Yes. You can as well spend it.
And there's even 20%, there's more taxation on
yeah, so the fact that it's being taxed and you're still using your money, you're going to spend more buying bundles, you can probably use it in a better way to have a voice reach out.
Okay.
Let us start to understand that we can recall these people. What are the legal provisions that allow us to recall these people? Let us just try. You see, it may not go anywhere, but tukijaribu,
no one has tried so far.
Let us just try. Let us try and see if it actually works. Okay. Because we have our constitution that is not so old. I wouldn't want to call it new because 14 years is now. It's old enough to be tested. So let us try and see these provisions. If you try it with one person, can the president be shaken? Like, can we have this voice?
Okay.
Let us have our voice out there as the youth.
Just try.
Yeah, just try a bit.
Fred also,
for a parting shot as you make your final.
There needs to be an effective civic engagement in the country, because I want to believe as to why also the citizenry is also not, collectively speaking up, is because of that lack of civic engagement. Because as a country, we wait to engage on the matters civic engagement towards election. But that's something that should actually be happening right now. If we had an effective civic engagement in the country, then I'm very sure the leadership will be hearing our voices. But as we speak of our parting shots, I just want to urge the Kenyan youth that, what I've always emphasized, you cannot afford to be silent in the face of injustice. You cannot afford to stay away from politics, because whether you're involved directly or indirectly, it affects you. So we need to come to a point as a citizen, as a youth in this country, to be able to speak up, because if you don't, then your livelihood will actually be legislated out of existence. Even with the civic engagement I'm talking about, it's already being legislated, because the Senate now has a civic engagement bill that is, they're having public participation on it. So we really need to come up as a people, as a citizenry, as youth bloc, to take part in the political space and speak up.
Thank you. Victor, parting shot.
So the theme of the 2024 budget policy statement was a sustainable bottom-up economic transformation agenda for economic recovery and improved livelihoods. At the moment, I don't think it directly reflects to that. The review of 2023 budget policy statement and demonstrated resilience. The Kenya's economy projected growth by 5.6%. So we got and actually talk about the economy growing by a certain percentage, but Kenyans are not feeling the same. I wish that the government and the entire executive and people in charge could actually come out and speak to Kenyans a language that they can actually understand, a language that they will relate with, and so that we as Kenyans also can come out boldly and tell the government that this is where we feel like we're being hit most, and they can make reforms on that. I want to also give say sorry to most people who've lost their lives. We had the other day it rained heavily and people lost their lives, and most of the people are displaced. It's sadly as a country that we still have people as IDPs in our own country. But most importantly, I would like to note that a Kenyan is a Kenyan. We cannot say that Kenyans and mothers and children are supposed to sleep outside. We are going to take them out of a land that belongs to probably railway or any other government corporation. So we rather lose a Kenyan because the land that they are currently residing in belong to the railway, or they belong to a certain parastatal, is extremely sad state of affairs. So let us give Kenyans the priority. Lives are quite important in this country, and we do not have to lose lives because Kenyans probably don't have a choice.
Okay. Yeah. And Brenda, finally, 60 seconds, parting shot.
I just want to urge this government in particular to listen to the voices of Kenyans. For once, let the finance bill be the turning point. Parliament has not had a very good record since they came into being. Let them turn the story around with this, because for the first time they have more than enough opinions on this particular bill. Let them make amends. Let them listen to the voice of Kenyans on this particular one, and just give Kenyans a chance to rebuild that trust that Kenyans would want to have in the bodies that we do have. And also, speaking to the coordination of government activities, can you see some order? Because everyone is doing everything by themselves. I wouldn't have done myself justice if I live here without talking to the environmental issues. Let it be done in a more coordinated manner. Let us engage the youth. We can't be talking about youth unemployment as a main problem that we do have, yet when small opportunities or such opportunities to give the youth a chance to do something show up, we again do not want to do it in a coordinated manner or in a sustainable manner. So mine would just be listen to the people and